Hello friends, here at the ESPN Sports Complex in Orlando, Florida. The Brazilian national team trained for the first time this year, 2026. It's a World Cup year. It's a World Cup. The World Cup is just around the corner. June is approaching, and as you know, this is a crucial FIFA date, the last one before the announcement of the list of 26 players who will be here in the United States to represent the Brazilian national team on the road to their 6th championship, to their 6th championship. Who knows, maybe in July at Match Life Station, we'll be celebrating this long-awaited 6th championship, some we've been dreaming of for so long. So for that, a lot of work and dedication from the players is necessary. Ancelotti isn't wasting any time, even though he only had 15 players here in Orlando, including 2 goalkeepers, and one of them couldn't even get on the field. I'll detail that for the fans shortly. Coach Ancelotti and his coaching staff have already been working on tactical adjustments here in Orlando. This is due to the upcoming match against France in Boston next Thursday at 5 o'clock p. Brasilia point India time. So you need to hurry to speed up the process. You who follow us know, right? During FIFA, there isn't much time for the coach to implement absolutely complex ideas. That's it. It's about trying to translate in a very didactic way what the players need to show on the field with the Brazilian national team. Although their first game wasn't in Boston, the Brazilian team, collaborating with the CBF's logistics staff and coaching staff, including Director of National Teams Rodrigo Saton, selected Orl as the base for the 5-time world champions during this FIFA window. The team is staying at an exclusive 5-star resort in a nearby area and will always train here at this ESPN Sports Complex. So this is to help you understand your location. We're currently inside the Disney Parks area, right? So Disney has several parks within this complex. Anyone who has had the opportunity to come to Orlando has already passed by that arch, right, where everyone makes videos. It has Mickey, it has Mina, and it talks about the most enchanting land on the planet, the most magical place on the planet. After this entrance gate, we have access to the ESPN complex, which is part of the Disney channels, the Disney group. It's an absolutely robust complex. 50 football fields are available, suitable for soccer training, as well as for American football practice sessions. To the left where I'm recording, there's a baseball stadium, and to the right, a gymnasium that was even used during those NBA bubble playoffs during the pandemic. So you see, it's a state-of-the-art complex, a reference here in the United States. We always see many children and teenagers coming here to train. It's a bustling complex with a truly active calendar. It consistently hosts national teams and major clubs, serving as the home base for several teams during last year's Club World Cup. So it's an opportunity for the Brazilian national team to have a good training facility. This is fundamental for the team to be able to develop great work. Therefore, the option was indeed for the first game to be played in Boston. The Brazilian national team will hold all 3 of its first training sessions here in Orlando and then travel to Boston to play against the French team. Now, let's talk about the training session. For the first time since Ancelotti took over the Brazilian national team, we had a practically open training session of 1 hour and 15 minutes, 1 hour and 20 minutes of tactical work on the pitch that Carlo Ancelotti conducted with the Brazilian national team players. And the press was able to watch about an hour of this activity. So we were able to go through 3 stages of the tactical work, which David Ancelotti, Francesco Mori, Paul Clement, and Mino Fulco are leading with the Brazilian national team. It's important to highlight David Ancelotti's return. He was part of the first FIFA dates, then signed with Botafogo, and was absent from the Brazilian national team. With his departure from Botafogo after last season, David Ancelotti returns to work exclusively with our national team, and he is in charge of the offensive tactical training. He is an active voice for Ancelotti. It's good to remember that this is common all over the world, right? The assistant coach leads the training based on the head coach's instructions, and the head coach is more of an observer who is there making adjustments here and there. Ancelotti is very active in training. So David, Paul, and Mino are there leading the activity. Ancelotti is observing, and whenever he thinks it's necessary, he corrects something with the players. Carlo Ancelotti's leadership is very calm on the pitch with the national team players, but there is indeed a great deal of trust in the assistants, in the members of the coaching staff who have worked with Carlo Ancelotti for a long time, who is an extremely successful coach. For this activity, Coach Carlo Ancelotti was not yet able to count on all the players. Only 15 were already here in Orlando when the team started training. The two goalkeepers, Ederson from Fenerbahce and Bento from Lampasha, along with the following outfield players: Andre Santos from Chelsea, Bremer from Juventus, Danilo from Botafogo, Fabinho currently playing for Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, Ibanez also playing for Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, Igor Thiago currently playing for Brentford in the Premier League, João Pedro from Chelsea, and Leo Pereira from Chelsea, and Leo Pereira from Flamengo, as well as other players who arrived throughout Sunday night and Monday morning. On Sunday night, Marquinhos from Paris Saint-Germain and Gabriel Sara from Galatasaray in Turkey joined the Brazilian national team. Then, on Monday morning, two players from Manchester United arrived, Matheus Cunha and Casemiro. All 14 of these players went to the field and trained normally with Carlo Ancelotti. However, the 15th player was absent from this tactical session. There was a bit of concern among the journalists covering the Brazilian national team regarding Ryan from the Bournemouth team, but subsequently Ryan did some light tennis training on the grass with the team's physical condition Nick staff. Ryan doesn't cause concern even with his Friday match, allowing Saturday and Sunday for recovery. However, he will be traveling during that time. Ryan isn't a concern for Thursday's game. He's managing his workload and should train normally with the Brazilian national team on Tuesday. So, 14 players were on the field with Coach Ancelotti. And the first interesting thing, right? There are no wingers among the players who have already arrived in Orlando. What does Ancelotti do? He takes this lemon and makes lemonade. Yes, there were 3 tactical parts to this activity. In the first game, he set up a defensive line using midfielders. Sometimes the pair was Casemiro and Andre Santos, and sometimes it was Fabinho and Gabriel Sara. So the defensive line had 2 pairs, Marquinhos and Leo Pereira, Bremer and Ibanez. Among Brazil's central defensive pairings, they played out of pressure from inside. David Ancelotti led that part of the training session. They were breaking through the pressure in the center of the field, and Casemiro, Fabinho, Andre Santos, and Gabriel Sara had to pass to either Igor Thiago or João Pedro Porro. Up front, you can see images of this, and it's something that will be reflected in the game. You can be sure of that. When France presses high, or when Morocco presses high in the World Cup, the Brazilian team will use this tactic of trying to get the ball to the midfielder to break the pressure, finding a 1-2 with the center forward so he can finish. And always finishing with small goals without the goalkeeper's involvement in the finishing, just the center forward's decision making. It was a very interesting exercise, because if you don't have wingers, well, Vinicius didn't arrive, Rodrigo out of the World Cup, that's true, but Vinicius didn't arrive, Martinelli didn't arrive, Rafinha didn't arrive. The players who can play on the wings for the Brazilian national team aren't available yet. So Ancelotti used these plays through the middle, and Matheus Cunha as the great playmaker of this Brazilian team. So he alternated the center back pairing, alternated the midfield pairing, but Matheus was always making that decision, showing that he is the great number 10, the great mastermind of this Brazilian team. Ancelotti has preferred to play without that playmaker in the center of the field. Well, let's go to the second part of this tactical work. This was a simpler tactical exercise. Ancelotti divided the group into 2 parts, 1 center forward on each side, 2 center backs on each side, 2 midfielders on each side. The resulting match therefore took place on a very limited playing field. Both goalkeepers participated in this activity, and the idea was to practice 2-touch ball control, and you could only score when the coaching staff authorized it. So you couldn't take too many risks, but you had to work on decision making in a short space of time to strengthen the understanding between the players. Furthermore, it was notable that Igor Thiago Bremer, who was carefully managing his workload, and João Pedro all rested Lusamo. Coach Carlo Ancelotti had the IE defenders and midfielders play a game. He would always pair a central defender with a defensive midfielder, focusing on efficient offensive transitions within a very limited area of the pitch. Remember that pass? From the pivot in the box, you return it to the defensive midfielder at the goal line. Ancelotti wants that element of surprise. From Casemiro arriving at the edge of the penalty area to shoot, from Gabriel Serra arriving at the edge of the penalty area, from Fabinho especially, the midfielders there and in the decision-making in midfield, arriving with a surprise element at the edge of the penalty area to try and shoot after a pivot play by the center forward. Yeah, so it was very interesting to see that movement. And then after the defenders attacked in that low play looking for the finish, they had to attack in the air with crosses. Pashlati. Then, since you didn't have a winger, Andre Santos did that work on one side and Gabriel Sara did it on the other, which could even be a possibility for the Brazilian national team when playing with three midfielders, with a Casemiro more planted and Gabriel Sara more advanced. Casemiro more planted, Andre Santos and Matheus Cunha himself a little more advanced around the midfield. These are variations to have that midfield more open, making the cross, and then this attack versus defense work was very interesting. But it was missing from the first training session with the national team, which you saw on a wide field with a full field, how David worked on some variations in this team. One was the center forward combining with the midfield and moving towards the goal. And another was the center forward controlling the pivot, turning and going for the finish. And this joins with the third exercise I mentioned, which is on a shorter field, where you had both goalkeepers constantly under pressure because you leave the opponent in doubt. Yeah. Sometimes the center forward will control the ball, look for the pivot. Sometimes the center forward will control the ball, turn to score. And I have to highlight two debutants in this Brazilian national team training session. Leo Pereira, extremely praised by Carlo Ancelotti coaching staff, was one of them in this activity. Leo Pereira, who could even be a starter. I hadn't mentioned this yet, but Gabriel Magalhães has been dropped. I'll bring more details about that in the next bulletin. He felt pain in his knee during the English League Cup final. He was ruled out for Gabriel's spot. No other player will be called up. So Leo Pereira could be a starter in the game against France, because Arnold doesn't left back for this FIFA date, a position that had already been used with the Brazilian national team. So the competition is there, especially between Leo Pereira and Ibanez, because Bremer played more on the right side of the defense in training here with the Brazilian national team. Another player who was highly praised was Igor Thiago, leading the offensive for the five-time world champions. He's having his first training session ever with the Brazilian national team. It was very interesting to see Thiago's vigor and joy in this activity with the national team. I ask you, would you like to see Igor Thiago as a starter? It's more difficult. João Pedro's at the forefront of this group and has a formation without a number 9, which Ancelotti has been using a lot with Matheus Cunha, Rafinha, Vinicius Jr. and Esteban. Let's see how he'll fill the void left by Rodrigo, who had been the starting player for the Brazilian national team, and Leo Pereira at left back. Do you like him? Do you like him? I'm asking you this question, and I hope you guys will comment below, that giving your opinion on these possibilities for the Brazilian national team in the game against France. Well, I'm Marcelo Mourinho here, live from Orlando. I'm tracking the planet's biggest team on its way to the 6 with every detail. All the info on the 5-time world champions. The first training session is over. 2 more until the trip to Boston, a game against France. And let's follow the 5-time world champions together on their journey